Hello and welcome to my channel. Say hi to a happy day. In this channel, I would like to share tales and stories I personally picked and or my kids' favorite stories. Let's enjoy listening while I read to you the story of Patrick O'Donnell and the Leprechaun. Finding a leprechaun can be like winning the lottery if you remember to never ever take your eyes off him. Patrick O'Donnell was walking home one night from the Donegal County Fair. As he came over a hill, he heard a shrill little scream out in the swamp. It sounded like a bird, but he had never heard a bird like this. So he made his way out into the bog, taking care not to sink in the thick mud. Thorn bushes snatched at his clothes and hands, but he kept going, that shrill little cry urging him onward. Finally, he reached the middle of the bog and blinked his eyes in surprise. The moon overhead was bright and full, so he could see quite well. And there, caught by his pants on a long black thorn, was a little fairy man. "Poor wee thing," said Patrick, bending down. Then he caught sight of a tiny cobbler's bench under the thorn bush. "Why, you're a leprechaun." The little man swung at him with both fists, but he was firmly trapped on the thorn. "Just get me down, and be careful. These are new pants." Well, Patrick O'Donnell was no fool, and he remembered the old stories very well. Leprechauns always had magical pots of gold that never emptied themselves, hidden nearby. And if you could catch one, and you never took your eyes off him, he'd have to do anything you said. So he asked for this leprechaun's pot of gold. The leprechaun would have to show him where it was hidden. "I'll help you," he said gently, taking the little man off the thorn. "But I'm not letting you out of my sight. I want your pot of gold so I can feed my family." The leprechaun shook his head. "You'd better go take care of your father's animals," he said, pointing past Patrick. "Look, the fence has broken and the cattle are getting loose." Patrick almost turned to look, but then he saw through the trick. He had to keep his eyes on the leprechaun, or it would escape. "Oh, very well," the leprechaun sighed. "Put me down. I have a big pot of gold in the field over there. I'll show you." As the moon rose across the sky, Patrick made his way deeper into the swamp, careful not to look away from the leprechaun. They came to a certain black thorn bush. "My gold is hidden under that bush," the leprechaun told him with a scowl. Patrick looked around the swamp at the thousands of black thorn bushes. In the moonlight, they all looked the same. "Are you sure this is the right one?" he asked. "As sure as I am that I'm the one who mends all fairies' shoes after they're worn out from dancing. Just dig under that bush, if you must, and you'll find your pot of gold." But poor Patrick didn't have so much as a sharp stick to dig with. "If I go home for a shovel, I'll never be able to find my way back to this bush," he cried. "Not my fault," the leprechaun said. "You wanted to know where it was, and I've shown you. Getting it home is your problem." Patrick thought, and finally he had an idea. "I'll tie my red scarf to the bush. Even in the darkness, I'll be able to see it and find my way back." The leprechaun began to laugh. "That's your solution?" he asked. "Very well then, I'll be on my way now." Now that the magical pot was almost his, Patrick let go of the little man, who vanished like a shooting star into the night. Patrick tied his scarf tightly around the bush. It took him the rest of the night to make his way out of the swamp, go home for a shovel, and return. He chuckled all the way, saying, "I'll be rich for the rest of my life, and I'll never have to work again." The sun was glowing orange by the time Patrick stumbled back into the swamp, still chuckling. He was halfway across the huge field before he noticed that every single thorn bush had a red scarf tied around it, and each scarf was exactly the same as his. "That wicked leprechaun!" Patrick cried, shaking his head. "If I live to be 100, I'll never be able to dig up every thorn bush in this field." So, with a heavy heart, he threw his shovel down and stomped home. And until he was an old man, he told his children and their children and their children after that about the big field of thorn bushes and the magical pot of gold. The end. I hope you enjoy listening to the story of Patrick O'Donnell and the Leprechaun. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to listen for more of our favorite stories. See you soon!